Elvis, there have been a lot of rumors about your love life. Did you meet anyone special in Germany?
Not any special one.
It starts with a sound Elvis never wanted the world to hear. Not a roar of a crowd, not the crash of the band, just the soft creak of a piano bench at Graceland, late at night, and a tired voice you almost don't recognize at first. He clears his throat, lets out a quiet sigh, and says something so small, but it hits like a truck. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. No spotlight, no applause. Just Elvis Presley alone with his own truth, caught on tape. Most people only know the polished Elvis, the perfect takes, the movie songs, the Vegas showman who keeps pushing night after night like a machine built to glitter. But hidden behind that myth is another Elvis. And he lives in these rare private recordings, the ones that slipped out of the vault, the tapes that never should have left Graceland, and the audio that insiders whispered about for years. These aren't just songs, they're confessions. Some of them are old reel-to-reel tapes made inside Graceland when the house was quiet and the world thought he was resting. Others come from the studio, when engineers hit record before the real take and accidentally captured what Elvis really felt about the endless sessions, the Colonel, and the treadmill of fame. Some are shaky audience bootlegs from those final concerts where his costume is flawless, but his breathing isn't. And a few are home recordings, private jams, late-night talks that were never meant for anyone beyond a small circle of people he thought he could trust. Together, they form a completely different biography of Elvis Presley, one that isn't written in ink, but in sighs, slips, muttered comments, and half-joked regrets. When you press play on these recordings, you don't hear a myth. You hear a man wrestling with everything that came with being Elvis every second of his life. You hear the pain in his voice when he talks about being tired. You hear the bitterness when he jokes about being worked to death. You hear the loneliness that somehow cuts through even when a room is full of people laughing with him. And slowly, you realize the most honest version of Elvis never appeared in an interview. It leaked out in the moments he thought no one else would ever listen. Collectors and insiders have whispered about these tapes for years. Some say certain recordings never should have gotten out, that hearing them feels almost intrusive, like listening through a keyhole into a life that was already stripped bare in front of the whole world. Others insist these recordings are the only place Elvis was truly free to say what he felt, about his body breaking down, about the pills, about the people around him, about the weight of carrying a family, a fortune, and a legend on his back. And quietly, beneath all of that, there's something even more raw, how he felt about the people closest to him. On some of these tapes, he doesn't just complain about schedules or shows. He circles around the names that defined his life: Priscilla, Lisa Marie, his father Vernon, the Colonel, the friends who promised to protect him but didn't always act like it. He doesn't always say the names directly. Sometimes it's just the way his voice drops when he mentions home. Sometimes it's the way he goes silent halfway through a sentence, like he's about to say too much, and pulls himself back. But once you've heard these recordings, you can't shake the feeling that Elvis knew exactly who was really in his corner, and who was just there for the ride. This is what we're diving into today. Not a greatest hits list, not another biopic summary. We're going inside the rare, dangerous, intimate audio that shows Elvis breaking down, cracking jokes to hide the pain, confessing his fears, and singing like a man who who knows he's giving the last pieces of himself to people who will never truly understand him. You'll hear him lose his temper in the studio and then laugh it off like it's nothing. You'll hear private gospel moments where he sounds closer to a man begging for mercy than a superstar rehearsing a song. You'll hear the way his tone changes when he mentions his daughter. And by the time we reach the final tapes, the last concerts, the last rehearsals, the last late-night confessions, you might never be able to listen to his hits the same way again. Because here's the part almost no one talks about. That late-night Graceland recording, the one where he says he can't keep this up, somewhere in the studio vaults, buried among the outtakes and false starts, there's another moment just like it. Only this time, Elvis doesn't sound tired. He sounds certain. He doesn't just hint that he's running out of time, he says it. And once you hear what he tells that microphone in the studio, when he thinks the world will never hear it, you'll realize those rare recordings weren't just songs. They were warnings. The studio is where the myth was built. But on the rare tapes we're talking about now, it's also where the mask slips. One of the most shocking things about these recordings is how they start. Not with a perfect note, but with chaos. You hear someone in the control room say, "Okay, we're rolling." But Elvis isn't ready. He's clearing his throat, mumbling something under his breath, shuffling around. Then the band kicks in, he sings a line, and suddenly stops. "Hold it! Hold it! Hold it!" he snaps. There's a long pause. Then, with a mix of anger and exhaustion, he says something like, "Man, I can't even hit that today. We've been doing this all night." It's not the smooth, unbreakable king people imagine. It's a man who's been pushed for hours, trying to wring one more perfect performance out of a body that's already past its limit. These rare studio tapes are full of moments like that, the parts that were never supposed to leave the control room. You hear Elvis complain about the tempo, the key, the lyrics, the schedule. You hear him get irritated at the endless retakes, the pressure to make every song sound like a hit. At one point, after yet another false start, he laughs in a way that doesn't sound happy at all and says, "I ain't a machine, fellas." It's a joke, but on tape, it doesn't feel like a joke. What's even more powerful is the way he fights back in small, subtle ways. On one rare take, he changes a line without warning. Just one word. But that one word completely flips the meaning. Suddenly, the song doesn't sound like a simple love song anymore. It sounds like a man talking about being trapped, about being misunderstood. You can hear the band stumble for half a beat like they weren't expecting it. The producer in the booth sounds confused, but Elvis keeps going. In moments like this, the recordings make one thing very clear. The man the world saw in photos wasn't always the man who walked into the studio. Between songs, the tapes catch him saying the quiet parts out loud. He complains about the schedule, how they're cramming in sessions between tours, how he's flying back and forth, how his body can't keep up. He cracks dark jokes about living in hotels, about Vegas, about doing the same show over and over until even the music starts to feel like a cage. Every now and then, you hear a name. The Colonel, the people upstairs, management. He doesn't launch into big speeches. He doesn't scream about being used. Instead, it's these quick, bitter little lines that slip out in between takes. A sarcastic comment about money, a muttered remark about another show added, or they want more of this. And then, like someone flipped a switch, he forces himself back into performer mode and sings again. but the microphones pick up what his smile never could. Not all of it is dark, and that's what makes these tapes so painful. There are moments where the old Elvis shines through so clearly it hurts. He messes up a line, cracks up, and starts clowning around. He imitates someone's voice. He pretends to forget the lyrics to a song he's sung 1,000 times just to make the band laugh. Then drifts into some country song he loved as a kid. His voice is looser, warmer, almost drowsy. He talks over his own playing, telling a quick story about doing shows back in the early days, before the money, before Vegas, before all of it got so big it swallowed everything. And then, without warning, he stops talking. The guitar keeps ringing underneath him as he says, almost to himself, "Was easier back then. Lot easier." The people in the room don't answer, but the tape does. It freezes that moment forever. These private recordings weren't made to impress anybody. Sometimes it was a friend with a little machine rolling in the background. Sometimes it was someone close to him trying to save a memory. Late-night sing-alongs in hotel rooms, quiet afternoons at Graceland when he didn't feel well enough to go out, but still needed music the way other people need air. On these tapes, Elvis doesn't sound like he's performing for the world. He sounds like he's trying to hold on to himself. You hear it in the way he talks about family. He'll start joking about something small, maybe Lisa breaking something in the house, or how fast she's growing up. But there's this softness in his voice that doesn't exist anywhere else. On one rare tape, he's mid-song when somebody mentions Lisa in the background. Instead of finishing the line, he just trails off and says quietly, "I miss that little girl." Then he plays a few more chords, like he's trying to swallow the feeling and turn it back into music. Priscilla is there too, not always by name, but in the silences, in the song choices, in the way his mood shifts. He'll start a love song and you can hear his voice tighten on certain lines. He'll turn a romantic lyric into something heavier, leaning on words that sound more like regret than romance. If you didn't know the story, it would just sound emotional. Once you do, it sounds like a man replaying his own life in real time. And then there's his faith. In the studio, gospel was a genre. At home, it sounds like survival. These home tapes catch him falling into hymns like he's reaching for a lifeline. He's not polishing the notes. He's not worried about charts. He's singing like someone who's trying to remind himself that God hasn't forgotten him, even if the rest of the world only cares about the glitter and the headlines. There are moments where his voice cracks on a simple line like, "Take my hand," not because he can't hit the note, but because of everything sitting behind it. You can hear him sigh between verses, mumble a little prayer under his breath, then force himself back into the song. If you came here for the myth, this is where it breaks. If you came here for the man, this is where you finally meet him. But these recordings also carry something darker. The question of who he could actually trust. Because the painful truth is, some of these tapes, these deeply private moments recorded in rooms where he thought he was safe, ended up outside those walls. Sold, leaked, passed down as collectibles, turned into rare Elvis content for people who never heard the weight in his voice. It raises a brutal question. When Elvis sat there at 3 a.m. singing to a small circle of people he thought were on his side, did he have any idea that one day strangers would sit in their living rooms listening to those same confessions? On one of the most chilling home recordings, there's no song at all, just conversation. Someone asks him how he deals with all the attention, all the pressure. He laughs, but it's empty, and says, "They don't really know me, honey. They know the idea." It's a simple line, but once you hear it in his own voice, tired, soft, almost resigned, it feels like the clearest thing he ever said about his own fame. He makes little comments like that over and over. Jokes about people only really loving him when he's on stage. Half-serious remarks about being lonely in a full house. At one point, he says something about not expecting to be around to see old age, then immediately laughs it off as if he's spooked by his own honesty. Listening back now, those moments don't feel like casual throwaway lines. They sound like a man who knew, on some level, that he was burning out. The studio tapes showed a legend trying to keep up with impossible expectations. The home recordings show something even more raw. A man trying to hold himself together in front of the few people who were supposed to be his safe place. And yet, even here, in these private moments, you can hear time catching up to him. His breath between phrases, the way he talks about being tired, the way his jokes keep circling back to the same themes: exhaustion, pressure, being misunderstood. If this is how open he was when the only witnesses were family, friends, and a little tape machine in the corner, imagine what it sounds like when he steps on stage at the very end, in front of thousands of people, and his body simply can't hide the truth anymore. In these final recordings, the Elvis people thought they knew, and the real man underneath pull apart. The late concert tapes don't just capture a superstar performing, they capture a body failing in real time. At first, the shows sound like classic Elvis. The band hits, the crowd explodes, and the energy feels familiar. But as soon as he starts talking, something's off. His voice is slower, heavier. He jokes about being tired and under the weather, and the audience laughs, assuming it's just part of the act. On tape, it sounds like a man trying to push through exhaustion he can't hide anymore. When he sings, flashes of the old magic are still there. In certain phrases, his voice suddenly cuts through with the same power that shook the world in the 50s. But the space between the songs tells the real story. Long pauses, labored breaths, and a reliance on the band to carry moments he once owned with ease. Sometimes, he talks more than he sings, using charm to cover the fact that his strength is slipping. In some performances, his song choices and delivery feel less like entertainment and more like confession. He drags out certain lines as if he needs them himself. His voice is rough, fragile, weighed down by everything you now know from the other tapes. Late-night Graceland confessions, studio outbursts, home recordings where he admits people only know the idea of him. That imperfection makes these moments more powerful than any polished record. You can feel him singing not just to the crowd, but to the people he's lost, to the daughter he doesn't see enough, to a younger version of himself, and to a God he's begging not to abandon him. His offhand comments about being worn out, not doing this forever, or being remembered later sound, in hindsight, like a man who senses he's nearing the end. All the rare recordings, private piano nights, studio frustrations, home jams, gospel prayers, lead to these final tapes. They reveal a man giving everything until there's nothing left, while microphones quietly document the cost. Elvis didn't just die suddenly. These recordings suggest he'd been fading slowly for a long time, while the world cheered. In the end, the real Elvis isn't found in the posters or perfect live albums. He's in the missed notes, the sighs, the strained jokes, the tired, raspy voice still trying to deliver one more show. Those fleeting, unguarded moments are the rarest recordings of all, and they're the ones that truly leave you speechless. If these recordings change the way you see Elvis, tell me in the comments which moment hit you the hardest. Make sure you're subscribed because we're going even deeper into the hidden side of his life, faith, and family. The story behind the legend is just getting started.